Hannah, do set.
Oh my God, girl, I missed you so much. Hannah, how's things been? Man,
Girl.
I wearing white jeans. Man, Hannah, you're so bold.
Still offering to the drum machine. You put another face on my heart. The stars singing, the streaming color. The eyes single repeating. Not gonna be held back by the range's sour. No reaction without pain. I got far. Backpedal, angels go. Give up the throw today.
Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. It's fun, it's educational, it's heartwarming, and it'll make you cry. I'm Petey Rave, and I have the heart of a upstanding young student, really, honestly. I can't be hard. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got David.
In the words of Antonio Inoki, Mahekam Salam.
Exactly. We've got Drew.
Time for a lovely time with the boys.
Yes. And finally, occupying the fourth chair, we've got Brett.
So I know it's been a long time, and you guys haven't really had the true experience in a long time. But like Marion Cobretti is back. He's here. He's ready to be a part. He's got a laser on the end of his Uzi. Like, he's good to go.
I don't know if I've
Talk
ever
about
seen
some
that poster
music.
before. I don't.
I'm so ready.
I'm sorry. Who is this? Where do we get this guy from?
He eats pizza with gloves on.
My name's
and cuts
David,
it with
Drew.
scissors.
My name's David.
Yes. I like that laser sight. Give him a 1% to his accuracy. I believe additional 1%. You
Add
gotta
that
find
to
the level
the
2
aviators. The aviators cancel out the laser.
Yes.
So like it's just a wash.
Yeah, pretty much. You got to find the next drop. We're here to talk about music, of course. We're going to talk about an album. It's a new cycle. It's a new day. So it's my turn, and I'm providing an interesting album. I'm providing an album by a trio of gentlemen from Jacksonville, Florida, slanging out some punk rock by the name of Whole Wheat Bread. The album is Hearts of Hoodlums. Let's talk about expectations. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
The great thing I love about this band's name, Whole Wheat Bread, is that it's the kind of musical group name that I love because it tells you absolutely nothing about them. And I love that. Upon my investigations, I found that they are a punk rock group from Jacksonville, Florida, as Petey said. So I was interested. I was mildly intrigued.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, weirdly enough, I don't say this super often, but it was an album I was familiar with.
Shit.
Yeah. Whole Wheat Bread's a band I knew back in the day. I actually remember hearing about their first album, Minority Rules, as it was coming out. So Hearts of Hoodlums was something I actually was looking forward to at the time. So get into sort of my thoughts about going back to it.
How old would you have been when this album came out, Drew?
I was in I think freshman year.
Okay.
No. That's not right. 2009. I was
About
just
10
graduated.
years ago.
Yeah.
Give or
Yeah.
take.
So I was just graduating.
Okay.
I was like, let me do the math here. No, that was high school was Minority Rules. So then this album came out and I was like, oh, okay, Whole Wheat Bread. Let's get back into this.
Yeah. Brett, I must ask, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Okay, so I kind of lived in this world of like late 90s, early aughts punk rock. I had no fucking clue what this was. And I was impressed at how much I did not know about this, because as I'll get into, this is the sum of this is that.
Yeah. This is
that.
This is that. This is the early
Notice
aughts
the features on it.
Yes. Yes. This is that. This is early aughts punk rock, or mid aughts punk rock with some different kind of influences. It's musically speaking, yes. This is fundamentally just not just, but pretty much a punk rock record. It is dirty South punk rock, as they like to say. It is kind of has this tinges of being tangential to the crunk community. Its album has, for example, received help from Little John on this album, and even Little John had a feature on a track allegedly. And but also people like Tim Armstrong have helped, and also has this album. I like in the Wikipedia article it says this album has said to have received help from Little John, Tim Armstrong, Murs, and Mike McColgan, aka the original singer of the Dropkick Murphys. It's just an interesting combination. This is
also
you could not have just die roll. Like who could we get?
Well, also the thing is, said to have received help from, and then lists people. Two of the people it lists literally have features.
Yeah.
said to have received help. Like, Mike McColgan's on the first track. Jesus. Like, what are you talking about?
So you have been blessed by Fat Mike's bass guitar.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Don't say blessed, Fat Mike will get mad.
Yeah. So the
religious.
So musically, it's definitely punk rock, and it's aggressive, and it kind of like it has a bit of like a high energy vibe, but it has a little bit like in reviews that we talked about it. This goes into more of adding a little bit of maturity into whole wheat bread sound with some of the tracks. Kind of like it's not entirely songs about smoking weed and banging chicks. Like their previous work was, but about a little bit more of a serious issues. But it kind of balances some of this and some of that. And the other thing is that this is punk rock music by three black men, and that colors it in very cool ways. As they're dudes from Jacksonville, Florida, from the hood, but doing punk rock. And they combine some of those influences without it being an outright gimmick. At least to me, it is done well, and it flavors it in a specific way that makes it very cool to engage with, and very fun to listen to, and very fun to kind of like headbang to. But yeah, let's go to you guys. David, how would you describe this album musically?
Edie, I think you described it really well. I think I would describe this as a punk rock album with splashes of various influences that you wouldn't normally expect from the punk rock genre. And these guys made that work in some really interesting ways. And it was unexpected. It was different. It was born of a different culture that you normally hear people making punk rock create from. And it caught my attention, very much so. As someone who loves this particular era of hip-hop, the crunk era, a lot, I was really, really intrigued. So I enjoyed these splashes of various influences.
Mm-hmm.
North Florida.
Yes.
Not punk rock. Yes, sorry.
Yes. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
So, again, like I said, in 2005, like, this was Minority Rules, 2005, 2006, when I was listening to that. I loved it. Absolutely dug it. Loved everything about it. So, when this album was coming out, I was very much excited. And then I got to it and it sounded very different compared to Minority Rules. Like if you go back to Minority Rules, like Petey said, it is a very different record as far as tone goes. It is a lot more lighthearted in spots, and it just sounded like this like one of my like favorite like sort of pop punk releases from that era. They come back into my life in 2009, and it's this like darker, angrier version of what I felt they were before. In 2009, think about the years we had there. It was something where I was sort of done being angry. Like I just wasn't like I'm my high school years, we'll say late junior high school years, was very much the Anti-Flags, the Bad Religions, the Pennywise, the being angry at the government. And I was done. So I heard the serious sides of it, and I heard like, especially like the first parts of this album, like Your Bombs Away and Your Lower Class Man. And I was like, I don't think this is for me. Because there is this political side to it. And I wasn't about it. Which weirdly enough, I was getting more into ska at that time, which ska's history is very political. So I don't know how that worked out. But what will you do? It was just something where I was done with the anger. Like I just didn't want it anymore, I guess. So I was just like, I don't want this darker thing. Coming back to it now and hearing it now and seeing this different side to it and like actually diving into the musicality of it and the thought of it and actually getting into the meat and potatoes of it in this now, where looking at it in a different light, and a different mindset for myself even, it was something that I really, really dug. It was something like, unlike Minority Rules, which very rarely, like every once in a while I'll put on Old Man Samson or Police Song, like maybe. But it's not really a album that comes around a lot. This is something that I'm thinking like, maybe I should this should be something that comes out more often. It's something that the musicality to it is cool. And like Petey said, it's three black guys. It's a different voice, and punk rock and rap, in my opinion, are always best when they're like giving voice to the voiceless in a lot of ways, giving voice to people that maybe aren't going to get listened to. And this is mixing those two things and putting it into a new milieu. Like, hey, like here's these bits and pieces of different things. It's not punk rock from angry white dudes. It's also not rap like you've heard it before. Here's this other thing, and here's this other voice. They haven't made anything since, and I think that's a shame, because I think, especially right now, they might have some things to say that would be pretty interesting, and I'd like to hear them. Weirdly enough.
They're out there playing shows and stuff, and but like they're not releasing music, and it's like, come on, man. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Musically, this is definitely music from an era, in the goods ways and the bads ways. Let's just say they don't make them like this exactly anymore. It's kind of that hyper overly, like not overly, but like the super produced, highly dynamic, like it's like punk rock with a budget, or punk rock when everybody had like Pro Tools post that era. It's not quite the filthiness. Like everything's good, the takes are good, like the vocals work. Like it's not completely filthy, and like sounds like it was recorded in somebody's mom's basement, which is also good. And I'm all for progress when it comes to that genre. But there's like it also has the feeling like, like when it comes to a genre that is it has such simple like Lego bricks as punk rock. Like you pull from places, and you've only got a limited amount of tools in your toolbox, and that's sometimes people can do amazing things using only the color brown and like on a canvas, and like it's no less art. But this is definitely an album that uses the Lego bricks that very much are of like, oh, I've heard that from this AFI song, or oh, I remember when I remember hearing that tone from The Decline, or oh, hey, they did that. Oh, and hey, there's like totally a cello and a piano, or that it was of the time.
Yeah.
And like that is a thing. It's nothing against it. Lyrically, as it comes to the punk rock lyrics, there are things that did sort of stand out, like feelings and shit. Let's talk about my dad, yo. Like instead of being because the punk rock I was into was not necessarily all just white dudes. It was white trash, two heaves and a bean kind of people who were talking about doing drugs.
Sure.
And other people to put makeup on, but it is nice to have. It is more than a gimmick, like you said. It is not. They were doing it, but yes, it stood out, like not just because of that, but also the content of the songs were different, and we'll get into that here in a bit.
Yes, we'll get into some of the tracks as we get into it, because some of the key tracks, and there's a lot of tracks to jump around on, but I would say like a nice cross section would be these couple of tracks as I'm about to sneeze.
I was just going to say, if we were talking about
terribly obscene, just came out of Petey's face.
Yes,
he had to mute. We had to drop to it.
Yeah.
What?
Let's talk about feelings.
Yeah, we're talking about feelings. That's a different album. That's Lagwagon. I think we already did that one.
I think I heard some like Lagwagon.
For a second, I thought we were going to talk about Drake being in my feelings.
Exactly.
What the hell?
But let's talk about some tracks. So as we start off, it starts off with "Bombs Away," and I think it's a nice like thesis statement for the album, and it works well as you get a nice like look into what you're gonna come to expect from the album, punk rock wise, and compositionally it's really good, and it's a nice like energy song. It's very anthemic. It's a nice song to like pump your fists and sing along to. And it's fantastic. And then it jumps into another track that is pretty anthemic, but it has a nice contrast in style, a nice change in style, and Throw Your Sets Up, as it's like it's kind of mid-tempo punk rock, but like they're singing it in a more of a reggae style, or at least kind of using more of that terminology, and kind of like representing their hood, representing where they came from. Throw Your Sets Up, kind of calling the call to action, which is fantastic. And then I won't say the whole thing, but I'll say New Age Southern Baptist, such and such.
The word we will designate for this particular track, Petey, will be ninja.
Exactly.
We'll use the word ninja.
New Age Southern Baptist Ninja from the Hood. It's
a masterpiece.
It is fantastic. It's a very short song, but it is just a nice little reprieve that just like comes out of nowhere. It is like this weird like metal tinge thing that just kind of comes out of nowhere and is kind of hilarious and is weird in just the right way to kind of like, I don't know, break things up and kind of like have a nice little change of pace, which I definitely enjoy. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Throw Your Sets Up, the second track, really caught my attention. It was a kind of electro drum track, 2000s rock song, but the dudes were doing sort of a Rasta vocal verse, and it just worked. Like, I don't know, like, I know that there is that influence in ska and punk, but this really worked. It felt Rasta and not so much ska, and I really dug that. Also, I wanted to enjoy Girlfriend Like This, but I didn't. It felt
Why
like
was that? Why was that, David?
because the verse just kind of went nowhere.
Yeah.
Just kind of dragged on. I can't think. That had a midsection that I thought was just very special and really outstanding. I can't think. Also, in that one, along with the crunk vibe, it goes into an almost Hetfieldian crunch of a riff that was really, really cool. I can't think. And once again, I wrote this in my notes. New Age Southern Baptist Ninja from the Hood is a 1 minute, 12-second musical masterpiece.
Yes. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So for this Bombs Away, I personally think that Bombs Away is one of the strongest opening songs on any record we've done in the history of Record Breakers, period. You have Mike McColgan, Dropkick Murphys, and Stray Dogs. Is Stray Dogs the other band? I can't remember. I can never remember which one of the other Irishy punk bands he was in. But he was in another one. Street Dogs. Okay. But it's the simple, like, dark bass line, I think, sets a mood. If you're coming off of Minority Rules, Old Man Samson, this is not. And it lets you know that, like, right off the bat. Like, it gives you fair warning. It's like, hey. Ode to Father. All I'll say about this one was it hit me in a certain place right now that I think is very, very great. And I'll leave it at that one. Staying True right after it. Rap and punk rock, when done well like this, I think can mix really well. Like I said, both genres sort of being this underground voice for the voiceless at times, especially when they start to dip into politics and stuff, I think is cool. So mixing the two, I think, makes a lot of sense. And then having that crossover, I think, and letting those two sort of play within each other, I think is really cool. And then Stuck in the Dark, Murs on this one. Let's say he stays true to make an underground raw shit name, and does really well on this. I think his verses are really good. I think in general, it's a good way to leave off the record. It's one of those tracks that, like, hearing this, it was like, yeah, I want more. And it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been a decade.
Yeah.
I want more.
Yeah. Come back, man. Come back, my man. Come back. Put out
Baby,
some
come
music.
back.
Yeah. Any kind of
You
fool
can blame
can
it
You
sing.
can blame it
on me.
all on Drew. Yes. you threw me off. As we can't sing together over the internet. I have to remember that, like,
It's a good delay.
But
Yeah,
we'll have
sometimes.
actually we just
And
record locally and make
harmonizing.
Petey have that nightmare of making all of our
Trying to
bad
line us
timing
up.
good.
Yes, exactly. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I mean, it starts with Bombs Away. I bet everybody's talked about that. So, Girlfriend Like This, of the, like, there used to be a certain Bloodhound Gang song that played on the radio that you don't hear anymore. Like, there are just some things that don't fly these days, lyrically, and it is of the time lyrically. Like, you can't go back in time and be like, oh, but I mean, you kind of can, but I'm not going to. But
You should.
That's the they don't make them like that anymore.
Hey, sometimes going back to the Ballad of Chasey Lane isn't that bad.
There are plenty of examples of songs that I have brought to this podcast that have aged poorly. So I'm not judging people by the music that they listen to. Ode to Father, as a huge Azumanga Daioh fan, that like yellow like cat thing. No, actually writing a song that, like, ends with a phone call. Like, I wonder if that was like, that would have been in the era of voicemail, not answering machine. But that is a you don't hear that on a punk rock album very often, do you?
Yeah.
Like,
Usually it's the opposite way around. But
I mean, like, it's like not like Jerky Boys or anything, but like, it's like it was it's it's like this album did more than like several things that go against brand.
Yes.
Like there's some wholesome that lives on this album for an album that for a genre that is so angry and normally angry at your folks. And Catch-22, hey, it's a picked probably Fender Precision making that thing, and it reminded me of like going to Warped Tour in 2004 and like watching bands get mad at sound guys, and like that entire the sound of the punk rock bass. It's a thing that it's even more than the one punk rock drum beat that everybody did from 1997 on. It's
what the do-ga.
You got it, buddy. With a fill, but half the time the fill doesn't work because the guy's drunk. You sort of just wind your drummer up and let him go. So yeah, like they definitely had the like.
I'm learning a lot.
I have plenty to learn from you, Deej, but let me take you to 5 or 6 Pennywise albums, and I will show you that drum beat.
Exactly.
But no, I was really into the very. It was very like Fat Mike-ish, like the tone was on brand, and it made me smile. It made me think of getting a CD sleeve out of the back of my Chevy Cavalier and like being pissed off because my CDs was scratched.
Exactly. Let's talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what will be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
Since I have joined the Record Breakers podcast and since I've been listening, I have dabbled in the punk rock genre. And I will say that this is probably the most I have enjoyed a punk album to date. I found the production of this album to be really phenomenal. The guitars were loud without sounding shitty. The production was just good top to bottom. I loved how the drum track sounded in comparison with the live drums, which also sounded good. I loved that they blended elements of crunk and reggae and Rasta all under this kind of punk rock ice cream cone with sprinkles. And I just really dug it. And on top of that, the singer, Aaron Abraham, dude's got a really good voice. And he can really sing, and you don't hear that enough. And yeah, it was all really, really good.
Yep. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
As a whole, this album's really great. Again, it's sometimes music needs to tell like a really cool, complex story. Sometimes it needs to tell a simple one. Sometimes it just needs to be cool tunes with cool lyrics behind it, and that's it. This is, I think, part of that. There is a lot going on here that is bits and pieces from a lot of different places. Like you said, you have Murs and Mike, and Lil Jon and Tim Armstrong all on the same
Let's
thing.
go.
Like, it's something that like all of that shouldn't work, and yet it works so well that I've said it in every block thus far. The fact that they like haven't made a full length studio album. They made like a split conjoined thing with Murs a couple years back, but not something that was just like a whole wheat bread joint in 10 years. And I think that's a shame, because it's not like they're not still together. They didn't break up. They're still friends. They're still cool. But we haven't gotten like the full length again. And I think that's a dang shame.
Yeah, it's a dang shame.
I would like to see the follow-up to this in the current political climate. Is what I want real bad.
Hearts of Hoodlums 2. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album?
Personally, like, it's pretty hard for me to sit down and listen to music of this era and this genre as like an almost 35-year-old man who's lived as much of his life not as an angry teenager. Like, I just, like, there's a lot of things of the genre where like I just can't. I'm they don't write punk rock about paying your mortgage for a reason. But this had more than just that. It wasn't just the I'm mad at my parents and let's save up some money to buy some drugs and hang out with squatters in this abandoned building and poop and other things that punk rock is about. It's going back to it as a time and place, like a historical relic. Like, I'm happy that I've gotten a taste of this because it is like, I mean, this was I played punk rock in punk rock bands with punk rock dirtbags. Like, not well and not in front of large amounts of people, but it was the thing I was into, and having like this blind spot that I just got filled because of this. The entire reason that we have this show is so that we have this exercise of finding things that we wouldn't find otherwise. I would have never found this. And now I have that little bit hanging around in my brain. The same place where Duck Sauce and Glassjaw live.
Yeah.
The two completely different things. Two completely different things, but not qualitative, but quantitatively. It is a fun thing. I don't know that I'm going to be going back and listen to a lot more, but hey, if they come out with something in 2020, I'll
definitely listen to it.
I'll listen to. I'm waiting for. I want to see what the old guard has to say.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. Oh my God. I would love to see what they have to say. I know the closest thing we have is the split EP. I know that the main guitarist threw something together, a fun little song called "White Boys" on their Facebook, which is fun. It was like just him and his acoustic guitar jamming out this random song. But I would love to see them put out some new music, because this is of a time. There are parts of it that one would call problematic. There are parts of it that one would call very relic-like. But overall, it is very, very well made. It's really cool. It's anthemic. It's fun. It is fun to listen to as a punk rock record. It is fun to listen to. It's just kind of like the style of it. It's fun to kind of like listen to all those little pieces of influences that they include in there really well. And it is a cool record. It is a cool, really fun record. I think y'all should check it out. One of the few things I'll be proud of from the rest of Florida. I love.
I mean, that's a long ways away, Florida.
Yeah, that's the other Florida. That's Florida. I'm from South Florida. This is Florida, but I'll give this its props. Yeah. Let's get into the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for. The one, the only, the haiku review segment. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Hakumuro numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
A punk ice cream cone. Reggae and hip hop sprinkles. I'll have another.
I want to go to the punk ice rink.
Yes.
Play some punk hockey.
Yes. Moshing in ice skates. Was just like,
that doesn't sound horribly dangerous at all.
With a bunch of unathletic drunk people. Yes.
Exactly.
I'm like I said, I'm learning a lot.
The punk rock show at the Hot Wheels. Drew, what is your haiku?
right now I'm too busy trying to think of what couple skate song would play. As
It's still going to be Lady in Red.
But it'll be by No
is
Effects.
there a punk rock? Yes.
Or by
There'll
Me
be a
First and
punk
the
rock
Gimme
cover by
Gimmes.
No Effects.
Yeah.
Didn't give it time, but on the second time round, I think I got it.
Brett, what is your haiku?
More than a gimmick. Famous help, allegedly, of a time and place. Fucking
Yes.
the punk rock ice rink. I'm gonna have to have
got you
Davey
all
to paint
emotional.
that for me. I'm gonna have to get a painting of that, like an
Yes.
artist's rendition.
Yes.
We got a great commission.
Send it to me, please.
Yes. Have it framed and everything. You get the good frames. All right, my haiku. Aggressive anthems of dirty South punk rock from 3 punks of color. This album's version of POC. It means punks of color.
Whole wheat. So
Exactly.
yeah,
So rather than white bread, whole wheat bread.
yeah.
Multigrain. Yes. Those are our thoughts on whole wheat breads, Hearts of Hoodlums. Go check it out on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your dude diligence, as it were. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and it will be provided by David. David, what have you got for us next week?
I've been having a hard time debating one of two, so I'm going to do what I normally like to do. Brett, red or purple?
I mean, you can't not pick the purple.
All right, purple it is.
Purple.
Petey Rave Record Breakers fans and listeners, I will be choosing the brand new album from writer and composer Richard Henshaw entitled The Cocoon.
Thank you.
Color me
I don't have
intrigued.
any idea what that is.
Yes.
Thank you,
But-
Brett. I appreciate your help.
I look forward to
Appreciate your help.
finding the color purple
Yes.
in this music.
I thought it
Yes.
was. I thought purple would be either a Prince reference or a weed one, but I got neither.
Cocoon, never get old. Never.
Well, I don't know.
die.
Maybe there's weed in this one. I don't
Yeah.
know.
We'll see.
There was weed in the other one, actually. There was weed in the other one.
That's fine.
Stop being old. There's weed in everything. Grandma's smoking weed these days.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
not cool anymore.
Grandma's got
like
grandma-
tattoos.
Don't touch grandma's CBD supply.
Right.
Let's keep
As long as she's buying it from reputable suppliers and not that like black market shit that's killing people, we good.
exactly.
There's,
Hey,
whatever gets grand through the night.
exactly.
Helps
And
the
it's good for-
lumbago.
It's good
Used
for the
to-
glaucoma too.
It used to be it replaced her usual nightly gimlet. Now it's a nightly CBD pill.
For G&T.
Yes. That being said, you can go check it out on Spotify playlist, but that'll be next week, and this is this week, and you can of course find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XTruciferX. Brett is at HeyBDBearBird, but only on Instagram. I'm at PD Ray.
And I'm in Indianapolis as well. If you just
Exactly.
yell "Hibbity Bibbard" out, you can do that.
That's
I
true.
might buy you a burger.
Yeah, it's like it's not a huge town. He'll hear you from distance. It's like, it'll echo out there. But I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com is still the email. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV.
Give PD Rave a good review on the podcasting reviewing sources, the Apple Podcasts, the Stitchers. Give PD Rave a good review.
Podcast
He works
Alley.
really hard on this.
Yes. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, all those places. Subscribe, like, share, do all the things. Until next time, be excellent to each other.
God gave rock and roll to you. Gave rock and roll to you. Put it in the soul of everyone.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Was there a Toodaloo yet?
Yes.
Yes, toodle fucking Lou. Get the fuck over
Brett
it,
said it.
Drew.
He said it.
Listen.
Brett said it.